You can make a choice about anything concerning your life, but you can never choose when to raise your children because it is time bound. Hello, if you have not seen me before, this is Aunty Mary bringing biblical truths to life, especially in relation to the family being the basic unit of our society. In today's video, I will be talking on best parenting methods. This is a very challenging topic because many people have different ways on raising their children. Some parents raise their children passively and some raise their children actively. But today, I will be talking on God's way of raising up your children. Why God's method? Since God is the maker, the owner, and the giver of children to us, parents are just caretakers. And so, He has given a way that children have to be raised. When God was creating your child, He had a purpose that child has to fulfill on earth. And so, He has given expectations to parents that they must carry out in order to raise the children for them to meet this purpose for which they were created. But before we get into the expectations, why is God's way of raising children the best? If you look at a house, I want to take this quotation from one book that I read by Dr. Stanley Makowe of Kenya. He says, a house is owned by 4 people: the architect, the builder, the landlord, and the tenant. If you look at Psalm 139, verse 16, God is the architect, because that verse, it talks on how God knew us before He formed us in our mother's womb. And God also is the builder. That same Psalm 139, verse 13, it talks on how God formed our bones in our mother's womb. So He actually built us in our mother's womb. 1 Corinthians 3, verse 16, it talks about us being the temple of God. And that if we destroy the temple of God, He will destroy us. When you want to see where He is a tenant, you will see it from 1 Corinthians 6:20, which talks about Christ purchasing us with His blood. So you see that God actually is the architect, He is the builder, He is the owner, and then He is the tenant in us. So He is in all our owner. That's why He is authentic to tell us exactly how we can raise these children. So getting to the expectations that God has for parents, God expects parents to instruct their children. You will see that in Ephesians 6, verse 4. God expects parents to discipline their children. You will see that in Proverbs 13:24. He expects parents to train their children. You will see that in Proverbs 22, verse 6. Another expectation is God expects parents to teach their children. Ephesians 6, 1-3. And then God expects parents to relate with their children in love, to draw close to their children in love. You will see that in 1 Peter 4, verse 8. These are the expectations God has for parents. The children, they don't ask you to deliver them. They have no choice to belong to whichever parent. But when they come with a responsibility upon the parents. And this responsibility has been given by God. Some parents raise their children passively, and some parents raise their children actively. What do I mean? When you are a passive parent, it means you give instructions, you don't follow them. You don't even know what instructions to give to your children. They just grow up by chance. And you believe that they will grow up and become good because you grew up and you came out good. What if your child grows up and is not good like you When you are raising up your children, there are objectives that you have. You cannot discipline your child without instructing the child. I will talk first on how to instruct your child. To instruct your child means you have an expectation, you call the attention of the child, you follow up with that child, you train the child on how to do that thing that you want. As the child is doing it, you are inspecting and instructing, correcting, and making sure that that child understands your expectation and carries it to the end. When that child brings out your expectation, it means that child has understood exactly what is expected of him. You cannot instruct a child without training the child. And you cannot discipline a child when you have not yet instructed the child and trained the child. Parents are supposed to instruct their children, train them in the instructions, and then discipline them if they know that the children have understood the instructions. So passive parents, when they give an instruction to a child and they don't follow up, that child will never take that parent serious. But an active parent is the parent who gives an instruction, follows up with the child, and makes sure that expectation that he has in his heart has been carried out. That is an active parent. That is what God expects of us parents. So we must be actively involved in the lives of our children when we are bringing them up. What are the objectives of bringing up your children? 1, you have to train your child to obey authority. And what is the meaning of obedience? To know that your child is obedient. When you speak at a normal tune and the child responds with an urgency, it means your child is obedient. But when you speak and the child doesn't hear, you raise your voice the second time before the child hears, it means that child is training you. You are not training the child. A good parent will train the child to obey him the first time that he gives a command. So, you must train your child to obey because it is a command from God. Just like Ephesians 6 verse 1 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." So when you don't train your child to be obedient, it means you are causing that child to sin. And it means you are sinning. But when you train your child to obey, it means you are training that child to be under an authority. Your authority, the authority of the teacher, the authority of the Sunday school teacher, the authority of his future boss. Another objective for training is to build your child with the skill of wisdom. You are impacting wisdom in your child. You are impacting self-control in your child. When your child is wise, he will know what is right and what is wrong. So you have to train the child to obey so that the child will be able to know that this is wrong and this is right. Another objective of training is to train the child in self-control. In future, when you are training your child, you are looking at the future. You are not looking at now. Because in future, if you don't train your child in self-control, the child can easily be derailed. The child can easily take another turn that you did not train him in. Remember, Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up your child in the way he should grow, and when he grows, he will not depart from it." So when you train your child to obey you, it means you are training that child to be self-control, you are training that child to be wise, and you are also building life skills in that child by causing that child to obey. Because when a child grows without knowing how to do things, which are life skills, through obeying you, that child will go out there empty. That's why you see in the society today, there are so many children who are empty, and so they turn to do other things that are not right in the society. But when you train your child to grow in wisdom, to obey you, to grow in self-control and these life skills, the future of that child is guaranteed. That child will grow up to be a successful child. That child will grow up to be responsible. That child will grow up to be able to carry out commands from his boss, and life will be exciting and enjoyable for that child. A child who submits to your authority submits to any other authority. And a child who is left on his own has a frustrated lifestyle in future. If you look at Proverbs 29:15, Proverbs 10:1, and Proverbs 23:14, you will see all the things that will happen to a child who is raised up without this training. You will see how some children will grow up, they bring grief and shame to their parents. You will see how some children grow up and they are rude and arrogant to their parents. They are children who have not been trained. How will you feel if in future you see your son being carried away right in front of you because the child stole, or because the child killed somebody, or because the child did something that needed self-control? So it is an imperative for parents to train their children with these expectations that God has given. We have to put them in place. When we put them in place, the children will grow up to be wonderful adults who will make up a better society for us. In our next video, I will be talking on how you have to discipline your child when the child falters, and how you have to draw close to your child through play, and how you have to instruct your child. We are going to do the how. So see you in my next video. Remember to hit the notification button so that when the video is released, you will be the first to be notified. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.